Last orders at the bar!
A night in with Mauler and the drinker, getting trashed with the web stream thinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine. I'll say, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, Mauler and the critical drinker.
Well, good evening, all you shiny people out there. How's it going?
Hello. They better still be drunk.
Well, I mean, I'm doing my best. It's like Sunday evening here at the time of recording. That's usually my wind down time from the drunkenness, and then get started again on Monday.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself occasionally. But anyway, we're here, and we got our bunch of super chats that we have to do from Thursday's open bar. That's open bar 139, and damn, you guys were super generous on that night. You had a lot to say for yourselves, and we got through as many as we could on the night. But as always, there's loads left over. So we're here to do it now and see if we can answer your questions. So the Present Fathers podcast says you guys should talk about Warfare. Finally, a great movie made with heart and soul. Well, I did, and I reviewed it, and I very much enjoyed that movie. So it was good stuff. Jonathan Lampkin says, shout out to me and my wife. We make 10 years on Friday. Oh, congratulations. That's awesome stuff. Toller Talks says, just popping in to say thank you for doing a video on Warfare. On behalf of veterans everywhere, it needs as much exposure as it can get. Absolutely. And I'm kind of curious, actually, to see how it's doing at this point. Let's see what the box office is sitting at. Because it only had a $20 million budget, so it shouldn't require too much to make a profit. So yeah, currently it's sitting at 24 million worldwide, and yeah, it's after 2 weeks, so I could definitely do with a bit of a boost, but it's still pulling in reasonable numbers, considering it's not had a huge number. I think it's probably because it's not had much international exposure. It's doing pretty well in America, but like its international numbers are only like a couple of million, which makes me think it doesn't have a wide release in the rest of the world. Brother Snape says, Star Wars: Attack of the Rapists. Yeah, I mean, that was a contentious issue for sure on Andor, so yeah, it's going to be for quite some time. Glitterstorm Apocalypse. I'm raising my glass of Whistlepig 12-year-old to you legends. I look forward to open bar every single week. Question: my favorite director is Guy Ritchie. Are there any other directors comparable? Well,
I mean, specifically to Guy Ritchie, he's quite unique in what he does.
Quite unique style, yeah. I mean, could you say that? Who's the guy that did the Cornetto trilogy?
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, yeah. Is he broadly similar?
You know, again, kind of his own thing. But I mean, if you like Guy Ritchie stuff, you'll probably like Hot Fuzz and the trilogy itself. Thing is, I would hesitate before recommending something like Last Night in Soho as a result of liking Guy Ritchie's content. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. That was a weird one.
I mean, a lot of people recommend the hell out of Peaky Blinders, right? That could be something that might match. I haven't seen it myself, so I can't really speak to it. But I'm trying to think of other stuff.
It's gangster, but it's like 1920s gangsters, and the style is not really Guy Ritchie-ish.
Yeah, I would say the same for Boardwalk Empire. It's not really Guy Ritchie-ish. Trying to think what would be in proximity to him. I don't know, but I mean, maybe they've seen all of his stuff already. In which case,
yeah. I mean, is he kind of like a British Tarantino?
I think you could go that. The problem, of course, by saying like, yeah, you might like Tarantino if you like Guy Ritchie. It's like, well, they probably know about Tarantino.
I should think so, yeah. But I think this guy was just asking hypothetically, like, what sort of director would compare with him style-wise and so on.
I could understand comparing him to Tarantino, yeah, sure. And Edgar Wright to an extent. The editing versus like the way the dialogue flows, stuff like that.
Cannon Folderall says, Drinker listed the classics of 39, 10 out of 10. Cheers. Well, I did my best, thanks. Reno the Turk says, is season 2 of Andor being Brendan Gleesoned? How does one Brendan Gleeson something?
Well, they're talking about Joker too, aren't they?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fuck. Looks like it. By the way, Snarky's Tifa cosplay, chef's kiss. Yeah, she did very well with that. It was good to see. Master of Puppets says, Drinker, I've thrown some money at Trial by Fire with the movie pitches. Do we have to write a script or just give our idea? I've got an idea, but I have no idea how to go about writing a script for it. So, I mean, in an ideal world, yes, write a script. But like, if it's a particularly amazing idea, we can potentially go forward with that and then, get someone to write the script for it or work with you to produce the script for it. So it's not a deal breaker by any means, but like it just gives us more to work with initially if you do have a script. So that is what I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Type Zero says Andor must have catered to what's that? SWT with their writing. Star Wars Theory, is it? With their writing?
Yeah, that's usually what SWT stands for, I think.
Guess so. I mean, sure. I don't think he was necessarily a big fan of season 1, so I'm not sure about that. It's Mr. Yang says Mauler replaying Near Automata. Apparently, amusement park song sounds very Welsh. Could you listen to the first 15 seconds and see if you hear any Welshness? True masterpiece of a game.
Yeah, I can do that. I can even do that right now while we're doing this.
Okay. We've got our Welsh detector on the case.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, you can carry on.
I didn't want to overwrite the music for you, so I was interrupting you or anything.
It'll be fine. Don't worry about
it. John Gets Gaming says they sat Andor in a forest for 3 episodes with rebels having repetitive arguments, and then they randomly get eaten at the end, and he just goes away. I mean, that pretty much describes that arc. Yes, it was pretty stupid.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree. That's probably the weakest part of the whole thing. Yeah. I might even say the weakest part of all of the series.
I think so, yeah, and it's particularly important when it's like your main character. If you ask me, if the name wasn't Andor and you were to ask me who's the main character of this show so far, I would have said Mon Mothma probably.
Yeah,
like the main plot arc seems to revolve around her, and she seems to be doing the most out of everyone.
Yeah, I guess her and Luthen have the intertwine, because Luthen's the one that's traveling through almost every plot line. So he's not done much the first 3 episodes though. He's just been kind of hovering in the background. Yeah, somewhat. We'll see. Rick Cox says, had hope for Anbor, but it let me down. Badlands Ellie Fanning and the Predator are twins. That Predator has to be female, or worse, a trans Predator. Maybe Predators don't even have gender. Who are you to say? Maybe they reproduce asexually. I don't know. Well, I guess they can do whatever they want with the law. I don't really want to think about them fucking each other. That's... I mean, there's probably some Tumblr post for it or something. I don't know. The lore that exists in comics and stuff would definitely have female predators. I'm pretty sure canonically female predators are bigger and stronger. Okay. So but I don't know if that. I've heard people discussing it. Apparently, that is supposed to be a male predator. Right. So, but he's a weaker one. Yeah. Is he the runt of the litter or something like that? Something like that, and that he's proven himself in this movie or whatever, but we'll see. That's a challenge, but fair enough. Yeah, did you detect any Welshness? Not really, no. Maybe my Welsh detection is off, but it's not exactly evoking Welshness to me, I'm afraid. But it still sounds good. Fair enough. John the Man Good says, hello, panel. Now that Snow White flopped and Disney is no longer doing live-action movies, what have you guys learned not to do when your chance comes to make and write movies? I mean, not do a live-action remake of a classic cartoon from the 1930s? That's one thing I definitely learned. What do you mean? That's the first thing we're going to do the second we get It'd be funny if that's what we tried. Dude, I reckon we could pick up Rachel Zegler pretty cheap these days, I mean, let's be honest. If we were forced to remake Snow White, we probably would just be okay, we're just going to follow the original. Simple. Sure, yeah. And if people don't like it, well, that's what it is. It is what it is. It's a live action version of an animated classic that's got a story, and we did that story. There we go. Done by. Yeah, because when you change it all, and people are like, wow, this was awful. Why'd you do that? You're like, I thought mine was better. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you would do way better by saying like we're not going to try and modernize it or anything. We're just going to tell the classic story and just off we go, and you can take it or leave it. Chernobog says, "Oh no, you did that one. That was mentioning that 1939 was the first appearance of Batman, which was extremely cool." John Gets Gaming says, "I thank Snarky J for her Final Fantasy 16 love, Clive for life." Well, you know, everyone's entitled to be wrong about something, and Final Fantasy 16 is Snarky's thing.
But if you're wrong about two things, you're off to jail.
That's it. Yeah, you never get an open bar again. 007 Angelo says the therapist telling Joel that she hated how he killed her husband is Druckmann trolling us for saying the same thing about how he killed Joel. Hi, gents. I mean, that whole sequence was fucking.
I don't even get it in retrospect. I thought so. He shot a guy who was turned into a zombie, and she hates him for it.
Apparently, yes.
That's stupid as fuck. Whatever.
Again, he could have defended himself pretty effectively there by saying, "Would you like me to just allow your husband to carry on existing as a horrifying monster where his entire existence is endless torture?" I mean, I could have done that.
Yeah.
Would you like me to have left him like that? Would you hate me less? It's just, it's the same old shit, man. Of just like he won't do a thing to stand up for himself. Cannon Folderol, drinker, corn for bourbon, wheat for neutral spirits. What's that a reference to? Is that a reference to the crops that we saw in Andor?
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
Let's go with that. J. Michael says Predator Badlands is the one role made for Zendaya, and it's the one role where they don't cast her. What, like an emotionless android? Yeah.
Hey, I haven't seen Euphoria, okay? Apparently that's where she's really good.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying Euphoria is amazing, whatever. But yeah, like, it does make me wonder as well the logic or the wisdom of having a synthetic as your protagonist, essentially, or your human protagonist. a creature that doesn't really care whether it lives or dies and doesn't really have any survival instincts.
Yeah, there's a way you can do that, I guess, but I don't know if... Because, Weyland-Yutani android. I mean, Andy, as people said, was the most interesting part, to an extent, of Romulus.
Sure, I mean, we all liked Andy. I think part of that came down to just him having a really good actor to portray him.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. Sunbem says, just back from Anzac Day, dawn service in time for open bar. Nice to see Robot Head representing. Respect to our diggers, lest we forget. Yeah, so the Anzacs were the Australians and New Zealanders that fought in World War I think, weren't they?
I believe so.
That's what they call them. But yeah, awesome stuff. John Gets Gaming says, I'm fine with slow, but this was just repetitive retreading of the same ground. I think talking about Andor again. All for One says, I agree with Mauler. Mon Mothma was my favorite.
I think she got given the most substance in this 3 episodes out of all the characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier. Like, if you were asking me to pick out the main character of this show just based on these 3 episodes, it would have been her. She does the most. MFL Legend says, Drinkster and crew, I'm getting hip surgery next week, and I was wondering if you all could recommend some lesser known TV shows that are some of your favorites. Look forward to the next month of bars while I recover. Cheers. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're going to recommend Buffy and Angel, aren't you?
Is that lesser known? I was trying to think more obscure than that. They said they need it for a week, because I was going to say Buffy and Angel will keep you going for like a month more than that, even if you're binging it.
I mean, you should definitely watch Red Dwarf. Like, that'll get you a lot of laughs, and we probably haven't discussed that nearly enough on Open Bar, so that would be my classic sci-fi sitcom.
I'm trying to think of what's obscure enough, because I mean, the both of us would probably say like check out Farscape if you haven't seen that.
I'm going to go really obscure and say Lex. Watch Lex. God, that show was bonkers.
All right, yeah, fair. You got a whole list there. Have fun.
Yeah, there was another one, right? I had to look this up recently. You know, one of those. I think I told you about this. Like, you remember vaguely watching a show when you were a little kid, and you're like, "Oh man, I can never remember the name of it. I just remember little snippets of it." And I eventually pieced it together and found it, and it was called Neverwhere. So it's an urban fantasy show. It was made actually by Neil Gaiman. So it was in the mid-90s. It was made here in the UK, And I remember it actually being pretty good. It was quite, yeah, it plays into the urban fantasy tropes surprisingly well. The soundtrack I remember being really good. The performances were solid. The characters were really interesting. So give that a look. That's about as obscure as I can go for this one. Mega Spiny Man. To all, by the end of Revenge of the Sith, did you believe that Anakin had finished his transition from Jedi Knight to Vader? I'm still unsure about it.
I just don't know how controversial I want to get here. I don't. The prequels are not good, and the transition of the character is not very well done. I've never, ever, ever, even as a kid, believed that he could switch from a noble Jedi Knight into, yes, I will slaughter innocent children in like a night. And when someone says to me, yeah, but he was trying to save his wife, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, Jesus. So
Yeah, but
no.
Mauler, his eyes went yellow. That means he's evil. Don't you get it?
Well, and I've heard the counters like, but he does cry later. It's like,
it's like after you've hacked a room full of children to pieces, it's like, well, you shed a tear, so I guess that means you're okay.
Also, Hayden Christensen's Anakin's dialogue isn't anything like Darth Vader's dialogue. And
yeah,
you can argue an event like that would change you, such that the way you speak, I guess, but I'm not sure that I see Vader in Revenge of the Sith Anakin at all. So when he actually, and I mean, dude, having Vader say, "Is Padme all right? Is she safe?"
Yeah.
was always a funny meme. And then him going, "No," is almost equally bad, if not worse, than when he says no in the fucking changed version of.
Don't, man, don't. That still
shit.
hurts.
So, broadly speaking, the prequels had a job to do. I don't think they did it well. I understand their story, and I think it's an important one to tell. It would have been really cool if they had nailed it, but you know, Anakin's turn isn't. It's funny as well because I really like the Order 66 sequence, but I don't. It's not because like my favorite part of Anakin's fall is probably when he's executing all the separatists, because that one is a little bit more complicated in that they are the enemy. They are the reason the war's continuing, even though they're kind of puppets. But he's just slaughtering all of them when they're desperately pleading for him not to, which is kind of is this strictly evil what he's doing here? And it's like, well, I mean, it's complicated, but you know, that's way more interesting to me than a room of children going, Mr. Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? I was like, oh, fuck off. Come on. It's a little too edgy for me, which is funny considering the conversation that's been happening about Andor, eh? And it's not child murder in and of itself. It's Anakin doing it. It's like, how are you gonna make me think that he's this really friendly, good dude, and then all that changes it is like, come to the dark side. We will resurrect your wife because she's gonna die of sadness very soon. That was another thing that just doesn't work as far as I'm concerned. They gave up when he said she's lost the will to live.
Yeah, oh god, it was pathetic. It was the fact as well that, like, you know, Palpatine lures him in with the promise that he can save her, and then when he actually does kill Mace Windu and turn to the dark side, he's like, "We will discover the secret to rescuing her together." It's like, motherfucker, you thought you gave me the impression that you knew how to do this already.
That is the be-all and end-all of the like reasonable part of it, by the way. Stopping Mace Windu from killing him makes so much sense in terms of like, well, he's the one that can teach me the secret. But when he's like, by the way, we're killing all Jedi, including children, and we're gonna like dissolve any sense that there's a democracy with this war. Also, here's the location of all the separatist leaders who are waiting to be killed by you. And it's like, wait a minute, you're like evil. you're like hyper evil. And it's like,
Are
no,
we the baddies?
I'm totally chill. And yeah, I don't know. I just no. So I don't buy the transition very well. The character of Darth Vader from the OT. I'm not thinking about how little Annie from Phantom Menace is in there. It's like no.
Yeah. P. Addy Diddy says, I understand they want to tell a mature storyline, but the fact that there's a Star Wars project I can't watch with my kids sucks, besides Ackleshite. Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of Star Wars projects you just wouldn't want to watch with your kids now because they're so awful. But yeah,
I was about to say that. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, man. It's just like it touches on the discussion that we've had before, right? Where I am open to the idea of having almost like different branches of Star Wars shows, where much like the MCU, you've got the the very family friendly stuff. But then you got things like, fucking hell, why am I blanking on his name?
Who knows?
Ryan Reynolds' character. Jesus, why is it
Deadpool?
just Deadpool, right? So you got like the R-rated version where he's swearing and it's all like, but it's all within that same umbrella. It's like, okay, that's fine. You can do that. And I think Andor is an example of that. But I think people had been lured into this almost false sense of security with it that, it's a bit slower pace, but it's still just your same family-friendly Star Wars show. And it's not necessarily. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either.
It's just this is the big conversation everyone's having. I know Gary has talked about it as well. It's just like Star Wars is a completely fucked up mess right now in terms of, like the idea of I should be able to expect something I can watch with my family. It's just like, are you still watching Star Wars? Like everything that comes out, really? Why? Why would you be watching Obi-Wan Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett or even Ahsoka? As apparently that's not as bad according to a lot of people. But Mandalorian is like, yeah, I guess I could see that. It's just that, and I would have thought Andor would just be another. I wouldn't, me personally, depending on the age of your children, of course, probably wouldn't think of Andor as the same as the OT in terms of an entertainment factor. This joke has been made, but it is kind of true. Kids at the age of, I don't know, 10 plus, whatever, they're not going to find Andor super engaging.
No.
And not in the same way they would the OT or the prequels even, which had notoriously been considered boring by a lot of people.
I mean, we're grown-ass adults and we struggle to find it engaging as well. So,
there's things I'm looking for that it wasn't doing in that first arc, but I can't imagine. I figure a 14-year-old version of me would be like, not sure about this. Like, this is a bit slow.
Yeah. Shaker Silver says, we already got Jabba's sex slaves, the implied sexual assault of Shmi. Sexual content exists in Star Wars. Showing a darker side in an adult show is not out of step.
I think maybe there's a different conversation that should be happening that has nothing to do with Star Wars with something like this. I wonder, because like it does feel like a lot of values are getting clashed as to, because what's come up a lot is what need is there for a scene like that, and it's like, well, I don't think anyone's saying it needs to be in there. Nobody really wants to be the person doing that, but there's a lot of heinous shit that's famous in stories that means a lot, and that's another thing. It's hard to talk about this without seeing what it's going to mean going forward.
Yes. I actually thought it would have been more interesting from a story and character point of view if she'd actually just given him what he wanted for the sake of, not dying and not blowing their cover. And like that had been enough to like essentially like cause him to look the other way.
I wonder if that would have been more controversial. Like that's they make it clear that's what the exchange is, and she's like ruined by it, sort of thing. But it does save everyone.
Well, that's because I think that's the more interesting choice. Because this way, it's just like, she fights back and then kills him and then like gets away, and really nothing happens to her apart from just taking a beating, which is like again the threat of what was going to happen is obviously awful, but it's not the same as essentially just having to force yourself to do this because you're not going to be able to fight him off, and it's a case of you have to do this for the greater good of survival for you and all your friends.
I assume the consequences of it would be the people who are on that planet who are just trying to hide and make do are now going to become a lot more antagonistic with the Empire. Like this will be her being like, they'll never stop, they'll always destroy everything you ever try to build. So she'll become, so to speak, radicalized by all of this. I assume that's where they would go. Have no idea. We'll have to see.
Albert Nada Retro. Hey gang, please check out the YouTubers Jester Bell and Dave Sundstrom. I believe they could be interesting additions to your respective panel shows. You heard of them at all?
I don't think so. There are people, of course, that I've come across that I don't remember that those are the people that were being talked about. There was, there's times where we'll watch a video from a YouTuber years ago, and then I'll be like, I don't remember the name of them. So if I have, I'm sorry, but I don't think I know those names.
No, I mean, it happens all the time. Jeremy Soden says Bix is tortured for days in the first season.
True.
Indeed. John Gets Gaming says, Theory, there's actually a great article on how Star Wars doesn't show some stuff. There's 34 rules for it, actually. Just Google Star Wars Rule 34. Okay.
You don't know. Don't do that. Just everybody don't do that. Rule 34 is a specific. I almost don't want to explain it. It's just porn related to thing.
Ah, I see. See what he was doing there. Eric says, yeah, call it Yub Nub. Okay. That was, I guess, instead of calling it rape.
Jesus.
Jason Pemberfoot says, I remember in Shadows of the Empire, the book implied Zizor and had possibly sexually assaulted Leia with his pheromone ability, but it was hinted at only. I mean, I'll have to take your word for that since I haven't read Shadows of the Empire. Biker Angelo says the Imperial officer wanted to plunge himself into the dark side too. Indeed. The Blacksmith says, I feel the SA scene wasn't needed, but am I to understand that torture, mutilation, genocide, murder, child abduction, and self-deletion in Star Wars is all good, but attempted SA is too far? Yeah, I mean, that's, again, ties into the sort of bigger discussion about what's acceptable to show on screen and like why there's
I think that's the bedrock of it. Everyone's got a different line for what should or should not be. There are things I don't think should be in Star Wars. I assume you're the same, but I don't. This one didn't cross the line for me, but it has for a lot of people.
Yeah. Patriotic Cat says the movie Lois had a good subtle SA scene, in my opinion. Okay. Starbucks Meg says, idea to improve episode 1 to 3. Spend more runtime exploring Andor's undercover experience in the flight test facility. Yes. And make it less goofy. Then reduce the runtime spent on Yavin 4. Also agree with Mahler that the Mothma arc is the best. Indeed.
And yeah, I think that would have been time better spent watching him infiltrate and get himself into the test pilot position.
Yep. And yeah, you could have done so much more than just have him, like, if you really need to like just waste some of his time, it's like, okay, fine, just have the ship get damaged, the hyperdrive doesn't work, he has to go someplace for repairs or something, gets involved in a little adventure there. Like it'll eat up some time, but at least gives him something to do proactively. Terry Masters says, my wife just finished watching Netflix Daredevil and says that Fisk is one of the greatest villains ever. I don't have the heart to tell her what happens in Born Again to him.
I was about to say, man, if you only consider Netflix, I can agree with that. But if you put Hawkeye, Echo, and Born Again on top of it, he's fucking ruined at this point.
Yeah. Shaker Silver, I hate every person saying, oh, it's bad because it's not my idea of Star Wars. Muller's right. Star Wars fans can't grow up. They just want nostalgia slop.
Well, that was in reference to like Ahsoka getting immense praise for just having colors and references. This, you could argue, is the opposite end of the scale, where we've got something extremely mature to be dealt with, you could say thematically and in like character, and that people are not interested. Some people aren't for Star Wars, but I don't think they're going to tell you like it's not like they're too childish. That's why they can't appreciate. It's like they just don't think it's appropriate. They, as a lot of these people have said, it's like they're okay with murder and genocide existing in the Star Wars universe, but this one was a step too far. I'd rather say it is. It doesn't surprise me in the sense of the what it is broadly. It's just that the scene itself, I didn't think was that bad. I was surprised it had the effect it did.
I think the bigger issue really is that as we move further and further away from the OT, both with the amount of content that's getting produced by Disney and just sheer time that's passing, I think there's this tendency to like wrap it up in this like bubble of sort of perfect rose tinted nostalgia of this is the epitome of what Star Wars is, and anything that deviates from that is lesser somehow. And I think that's where we're going really with the thinking now. It's just like there's this hyper like fine line of what Star Wars is allowed to be in a lot of fans' heads, and anything that steps beyond that now is like tonally or emotionally or whatever. It's almost discounted off the bat.
Yeah, and I would say like it's a weird phenomenon to have had so much terrible Star Wars that we all kind of collectively don't even canonize it in our heads. And then Andor, that's reputation is that it's so good that you'd want it canon, and then it contains something like this. It causes a conversation that's just never had to take place. Because let's be honest, like I stand by what I said. Filoni writes childish. There's nothing to worry about in terms of adult content for him. You're never going to have that conversation. You're just going to be talking about whether or not it's stupid. But with Andor, it's like, well, I don't. The conversation gets a little bit more complicated. This conversation hasn't been had in the fandom, I don't think, really before, because it's never had to come up as this way. Because the OT, I think I said this. I was talking to somebody, but I said like the OT is basically sealed in carbonite, as you kind of put it, with the bubble. Whatever's in it, conversation wise, it's over. So the Ewoks suck, but Luke's arc is great, and Vader's redemption is great. And there's some, Han's characterization in Return of the Jedi, a bit wonky, not as it. And I'm saying all these conversations, they're just done now. There's no new takes to be had about the OT for the most part. And so to have to return to stuff like Jabba with Leia or whatever have you, it gets complicated because it's like, wait, do we have to like reassess everything that came in there? And it's like, no, it's different, and it's causing all these like fractures and stuff when it's like, hey man, the OT is amazing and it can be analyzed indefinitely. And maybe, I will say, rewatch Star Wars in A New Hope. The aunt and uncle getting fucking immolated is kind of rough. Like you see the skeletons, it's like, holy fuck, dude, they skeletonized them.
Jander says, cheers, drinker and panel. Don't forget the initial start of the essay scene where they were discussing modern day immigration talking points. Yeah, I did notice that. That was quite on the nose. Talking about undocumented workers who have to come in and pick their fruit for them and stuff. It's like, oh my God. It's like,
I just didn't realize
you're going to have like space avocados now.
I thought the idea at the end of the season 1 was that this team was they were joining the rebels. I didn't realize they were going to be trying to just sort of settle in secret somewhere.
I mean, I don't know if they're just like, because again, I didn't really, I didn't feel like the episodes made it that clear, but I almost thought like, are they just hiding out? They, keeping their heads down for the time being until it's time to make their next move or whatever, because they still seem to be in contact with the outside world. Yeah.
Well, and so that I thought, because I understand wanting to take the step of pushing them from fugitives who had their moment on Ferrix to actual members of the Rebel Alliance. I get doing that, but I would have thought maybe take advantage of the year gap and just say that's what developed, and it's what happened on Ferrix that really pushed them to that point. Because I mean, we just got not a lot of time, and they want to do what? Like, is it 4 or 5 years worth of events? So
I think so, yeah.
I would have thought you'd want to skip to the part where we're all like the team is a part of the Rebel Alliance, and we're going to see some missions and then complications with different things. But yeah.
007 Angelo. Clever trick putting a large battle scene while Joel's being bashed to death. That scene was repulsive. Why Manny didn't spit on Pedro? Interesting.
There's a couple of things that are just mysteriously missing. That was one of the ones I noticed because I fucking hated Manny spitting on his corpse, but they didn't include it in this version. And I was like,
Yep.
I wonder, because every choice matters, in terms of like, why would you leave that out? Is it because you don't think it works or what?
For sure, yeah, because you can tell by like the way, the clothes they're wearing, the camera angles, like the setup of the room, like they are willing to go to insane levels of detail to get everything as close to the game as possible. And so they clearly know every beat. And like you say, anytime they choose to omit something, there's a reason behind it.
I mean, not having Tommy there is a very interesting choice. And of course, I actually kind of agree with the sentiment in that super chat is that they have like a big army fight thing at the same time, probably because I know this sounds weird, but it makes the scene go down easier if you're having something action-packed and entertaining while also tragic.
Oh, for sure, yeah. They 100% put that in to distract you and give you some big action set pieces to keep you excited while this other stuff's going on. Because I think if it wasn't for that, it would be so fucking heavy. I mean, it is anyway, but like, God, it would be even more grim. And
well, yeah, I mean, so my sister's been watching it. She said she found it extremely sad. She hasn't played the game, and I was like, it is extremely sad. It's brutal. It's cruel. It's a scene that, it would take a lot to make that scene work. You'd have to change a whole bunch of shit. But like, there's a reason why it's effective. People care about these characters. That's why it was fucking rude.
Optimistic Nihilist says, wokeism in film is on its way out. The battle going forward will be synthesized slop versus authentic creativity. The decline of Hollywood is giving opportunity to smaller filmmakers to make it big. I'm inclined to agree, yeah. We are entering the era of slop. And
we've been in this slop era for a while, haven't we? As well.
Well, it was slop tinged with wokeness, and I think that really has started to decline. And you know, what you saw was like the sacrifice of good characters and storytelling at the altar of like identity politics. But when you remove the identity politics, then the characters and writing don't just suddenly go back to 100% health. You know, like
yeah, I mean,
there's
you
still going
still
to be all
need,
kinds of other problems.
for any given person who is ideologically bent in any particular direction, if they're a shit writer, that's like double damage. But if they're an amazing writer, but they're particularly biased in a particular direction, it's like they might be able to create something that's still very entertaining. You know, take for example, this is maybe a strange example, but Verhoeven making Starship Troopers, right? Like he's a really good filmmaker and he made a really entertaining movie, but it's supposed to have a particular thing that you're supposed to take from it, and a lot of people don't. So
Yes.
it's like, so what happens then? It's like, well, I don't know. It's confusing, right? Because like an explicit, he's like passionately. I think he's even said he made it so obvious that like he actually hoped that stupid people might like not pick it up, so that the people who do get it would be even more frustrated. Like that would be a funny thing to have happen. So you know what I mean?
To admire the sentiment behind it, man.
Well, I mean, it's hard to hate him because he's made so many good movies. But like that's not exactly a great attitude. Like, but you know. One could say that maybe Trey Parker and Matt Stone had that perspective about Team America in terms of the point in that. It should be pretty fucking clear if anyone missed it. You know, and you could say that about a lot of satirical movies, but I just wonder about what I'm concerned more so with is just the writing, the average writing quality of writers in Hollywood right now it's like it's crashed.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. The economy of writing talent has just gone down the. Doesn't matter what era we're entering, we're fucked. Like we need all of them to go back to school.
Well, I think you know, people like Chris Gore at Film Threat have exposed this quite effectively. Like there has been a huge hiring push for people of an ideological persuasion that fit diversity quotas and stuff, and like their actual writing talent is like way down the list of priorities. And so, well, you hire shit writers, you get shit like products at the end of it. It's nothing more complicated than that. And like, unless those people either magically get better or you get rid of them and replace them with people who are actually good but perhaps not ticking as many boxes, it's not going to change. And that's the reality of it. So I guess we'll see what happens over the next few years. Tiki the Mighty here says the Star Wars word for grape should be schlurpo. I agree 100%. He tried to schlurpo me.
Suggesting Slurpo, yeah.
Zeddy Boy pointing out quite rightly here, Firefly had Jubal Early skirt the line as well with this sort of thing. Yep. Yeah, I mean, he said it. I mean, obviously, you don't get to see it because it doesn't come to that, but the threat is there.
That is an interesting comparison, actually, because a lot of people have said it's the word that made it not work for him in terms of like the scene itself. And I mean, he uses it in that scene, but I assume you agree, but I wouldn't want that changed. I thought it was extremely effective in Firefly. So
yeah, and I don't, particularly with the setup of Firefly, they don't really have like fancy sci-fi words for things for the most part. It's pretty basic dialogue, and so yeah, he would just use a term like that, which I think would fit perfectly. And the way it's just dropped into the conversation like that, it hits pretty hard. Which is exactly the intention behind it.
I probably, you know, like if I had me at 14 would have, I did way more enjoy Firefly than I likely would have Andor, as in like, I think it makes more sense to have seen that. It's just a matter of whether or not, I don't know, it's up to the parents at that point. That's what TVMA, at TV 14 or whatever, that's what it means, right? It's like the parents are deciding unless they're older than 14.
Yes.
Yeah.
Canon Foldero says, I bypassed the consenter. I'm so sorry. That's all right. It was a pretty good choice. Albert Nada Retro. I just want to point out it's historically accurate that women graped male slaves too. The reference is in Gladiator, and regardless of what Joe Rogan thinks, men being graped isn't a moot point. Well, there you go. Historically, it's there. Keel Robinson, Star Wars has always walked a fine line that allows it to have the broadest target audience of any IP. It's arguably a family IP, and now that family IP is affiliated with SA.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would argue it already was. And also child murder.
Yeah. Todd Stone, why would anyone be upset about Joel dying when he isn't a beloved character like Winnie the Pooh? I mean, that is very true, yeah. As Moller said earlier, though, this version of Joel isn't the beloved character with the cultural impact that the game version of Joel
It's
was.
not even close to comparable. Joel had an insane effect on like the video game industry as a character and for the audience. Yep. You're talking like like I said, because I think they're referencing it. We had a video say that he's not beloved. He's just not. And then we just checked a whole bunch of top 100 listings for characters of all time, and he was in the top 5 for like all of them.
I bet their criteria was just that he doesn't have many game appearances. That'd be it. It's like, well, he's not been in like, a million games like Mario or some shit like that.
It's an ongoing discussion, the influence The Last of Us had, for better or worse in lots of ways across the industry. And it's undeniable the Ellie and Joel relationship got so many people invested that, that you can directly tie the fucking result of The Last of Us 2 to how much everyone loved The Last of Us 1. That's just science at that point. It's like, it shouldn't surprise anybody.
Captain Bucky O'Hare, great show, actually. I loved that back in the 90s. I love the Star Wars Story Group's idea whiteboard went from diversity, women, and dinosaurs to Ray movie, Ryan Gosling, and rape. It seems like it, yeah. Albert Nada Retro, the scene in Gladiator where they reference males getting raped is when Lucilla meets with Maximus. A gladiator is essentially a slave and would not be able to say no. I mean, I don't really know how historically accurate that is, and I don't know how widespread it was.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I don't really know how you would rationalize the sort of dynamics of that situation. Type Zero says, we got Jack Black and Lizzo in Star Wars, and most of y'all barely batted an eye. That's because I didn't even watch that fucking season.
Also, what do you mean barely bat? That was like the conversation for everybody being pissed off, wasn't it? I thought so anyway.
Well, he says,
I'd already written off Mandalorian. I thought it was shit anyway, but like a lot of people, that was the breaking point.
Yeah. He says, you'll need to figure out the real thing bringing this franchise down. I mean, sure, it's not Andor, that's for sure.
Nobody's denying the damage that's been done. I think a lot of people would. So part of the problem here is that Andor was hyped up to everybody who didn't bother continuing it for like 2 years or whatever. And now that the next season's out, it's like, oh, that's an excuse to give it another shot. And this is what's in the first 3 episodes. It shouldn't surprise anybody that people who were already poised somewhat against it were not happy with this.
Yeah.
Like I said, it annoyed me that this is what they did with their first 3 episodes, because they had a chance here to sort of come through for the people who didn't really think Andor was any good. They had the benefit of the knowledge that the first season didn't start, fast enough for a lot of people. And instead they went with it, because I hear that all the other episodes are way better. It's like, okay, all right. I wish they'd started with those ones.
Yeah, that's the thing about first impressions, really, isn't it? You only get to make one, and this is their impression.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter how good the rest of the season is. If you and I told everybody, oh no, you have to, the rest of the other 9 episodes, the top tier, you should check them out. I know plenty of people will be like, I'm not interested, thank you. I watched the first 3 and that's enough for me. And you'd be like, well, I don't blame anybody for that. That's just their choice to make.
What's the next one? The Blacksmith says, although it'll never happen, do you think Star Wars would be saved if it went public domain? I mean, it's not really going to save it, because like you're just going to get a massive explosion of content, most of which will be absolute garbage.
It could save it in the sense that any sense of story continuing is retired. Everyone now sees it as like it's public domain in the sense that no one has control over it. So what it is what it will forever be, as in the OT and the prequels and some other bits and bobs, individuals choosing. At that point, yeah, everyone can make their own Star Wars, but no one will treat any of it as canon.
Yeah. As they shouldn't. Yeah, so it's just like mess then. Ed Song says, all this morality, what about Gonk? Gonk's been in the dungeon since Jabba. Boba Fett didn't stop the torture. The sound of the searing heat from the heat press on his feet still echo in the palace. It was horrifying. Did make me wonder though, like, since droids can't really feel pain, like what was the point in even doing that to him?
Well, I guess that's the question. Star Wars, no offense, because I love Star Wars, a little bit cowardly on the droid front. It doesn't want to answer those questions. So when they show, a C-3PO, or even I think R2-D2 actually shows enough stuff that you could be like, what's going on in there brain-wise? And then, droids screaming, and, droids like IG-88 or something. It's just like, how much sentience do they actually have? And Star Wars is like,
Just don't think about it too much.
Yeah, all right, fine.
Butter Biscuit says, I don't have a dog in the fight, but do keep in Sorry, I guess what you're saying is do keep in mind that Lucas was going to create an underworld show. We don't know the story, but I'm sure it would highlight the dregs of society, so SA might not be above Star Wars. Yeah, I'd be really interested to know what he would have done with that show.
This has been said by Ryan, and he's done it very effectively, very eloquently. I could never be able to replicate the way that he does it, but he's basically laid out, there's like 3 or 4 plus stories that relate to SA in all kinds of books that came out under George's control. So the best argument you can make is George never wanted it as explicitly as it was in Andor in live action. But I think that's a pretty flimsy argument if you're going to be like, well, but he's okay with it in the books. Like, huh? I don't know if that really lines up that well. And then, of course, it's just hard to make this argument when you've got the Jabba stuff already.
Yeah. Idiotison says, I'm roughly in Jay's ballpark, but I get what Theory's getting at. What feels Star Wars is a valid topic, but it can also be very fuzzy to define. Well, yeah, and it's going to be different for each person, really. Like, they're all going to have their own concept of what Star Wars is and their ideal scenario. And
when the prequels came out, fans were having that argument. So the prequels just do not feel like Star Wars. But these days, I think a lot of people will be like, what do you mean? They are Star Wars. It's like, yeah, everyone's different.
High Tech Wizard, real Star Wars as a setting sets very clear expectations. Rape doesn't belong any more than 1950s mopeds or Mary Poppins. It's not the adult level content, it's the obvious jarring anachronisms. I know, but like,
rape isn't an anachronism.
Well, this is what I was about to say there. It's a universal thing, like whether it's in a sci-fi setting or a fantasy setting or modern day or medieval times or whatever. Like, it's a thing that's happened all throughout history, and anything that involves humans can potentially have it. It's not something specific to an era like the mopeds that you mentioned or Mary Poppins or whatever. So it's not a fair comparison, I don't think. Krelixol says, Season 2 so far has wasted a ton of screen time on scenes that don't move the plot forward or develop characters in a meaningful way. Andor was sidelined. Yes, he was.
I agree on that, yeah.
Right, there's one for Chris Gore here from Eurodoc says, have you heard about the movie Good Boy that's been making its way around the movie festivals? Do you know if it'll get a wider release? Not the Norwegian movie of the same name. I'm sorry, my friend. Obviously, Chris isn't here at this point to answer it, so I don't know. Matthew Bugard says, as a side note, I hate the inconsistency in design language in my Space Wizard opera. Aside from the narrative, the time period where Andor exists should look, sound, and feel like the OT. The future as seen from the 1970s. I mean, I think it does for the most part. Like the set design and stuff and the computer terminals kind of look like they did in the OT. So I'm all right with it.
I would say they've put a huge amount of effort into trying to remain accurate to the OT stuff. It was actually a point of praise from Gary. I think he said that he loved the way everything looked and sounded. I said in response, it better fucking be accurate. They're spending $1 bajillion on it. So, like, it better be going somewhere. And I think it does. I agree. I think with Chris on the show is the best looking Star Wars show, which you could argue isn't a high bar because they're sludgy as fuck. But no, I would like to be clear that Andor does look good.
Will Yum says, dumb how easy Cassian flies a stolen prototype TIE fighter to a planet under inspection/comms lockdown close to a Star Destroyer and has zero issues picking up passengers and leaving. Yeah, that whole sequence did bother me a little bit. One, like, yeah, he seems to avoid the Star Destroyer pretty easily. Like, surely would have detected him unless it's some kind of stealth fighter. And also, like, the size of the cockpit seems to increase suddenly when he's got passengers on board. Like, I was under the impression that area was really fucking small. Like, it's got space for one pilot. Now it's like just this cavernous area that, like, I don't know.
I'd have to check, but I assume it's the same. They wouldn't want to be making 2 sets, would they? Like for that TIE fighter.
Well, it's an internal set, and it's just maybe it's the way the camera frames it or something. It didn't seem like it had seating areas at the back for like extra passengers. Because why would you? It's a fucking fighter jet, essentially. I don't know. Amenti says the Spanish executed soldiers that took advantage of Native Americans in the California missions. It's about discipline being maintained in the ranks, not about being kind or compassionate. yeah, agreed 100%. And I think the guy took advantage of this because he was out of sight of basically everyone apart from one guy, his immediate subordinate. So I think you can assume stuff like this maybe wouldn't be condoned, if there was lots of troops around or a superior officer around. This is just a guy acting out. Albert Nada Retro. I don't think Grand Moff Tarkin would be okay with his subordinates committing this sort of thing, but Theory would know better than me. Yeah, again, I suspect you're right.
Well, that's what the point I was trying to make, though, is like whether or not, because that's a conversation on itself. It doesn't matter. This guy is in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, meaning like place, planet, galaxy. That's why he's doing it, I assume. Because some people have said, like, we don't even know the Empire's perspective on this because they don't show it. And it's like they're probably not condoning this sort of thing. There's no real benefit to this, pragmatically. So no, probably not. And that's why he's doing it without anyone knowing for the most part.
If anything, it would have a detrimental effect on like people's cooperation with the Empire.
Yeah,
it might stir up rebellions and all kinds of unrest that they then have to send the troops in to deal with, and so it's just a drain on their resources. They would rather people cooperated with them broadly. Jason B says, are we finally seeing a rebound with movies in 2025 with Sinners, Warfare, and The Accountant 2 getting a lot of buzz and positive reviews? Love to hear the panel's thoughts on these films. All three look worth watching. So I've seen all three. I mean, if you want, I can give you my brief summary of each.
Well, do you think they spell anything in terms of era changing?
I mean, it's hard to say because none of them are going to be like game changers in terms of like the amount of box office revenue they'll bring in. Sinners, apparently, though, is doing quite well. But I mean, look, I'm always happy to take a run of good movies when I get them. I think it's interesting, particularly with The Accountant 2, that they chose to make it now, like almost 10 years after the original. But it's just a pretty standard action thriller, really. Like there's no political messaging in it of any kind. So I guess that's something that is kind of rare these days. But yeah, it's a fun enough movie to watch. And like these are the kinds of things I would take over, stuff that's just pandering to you. Even if it's not something like groundbreaking or anything, just a relatively fun action movie that you can just lose yourself in for a couple of hours. That's okay. I guess I'll reserve judgment until I see what happens with some of the bigger movies, because I think they're the benchmark. So, yeah. Boyd of Zinj says, I don't think the Empire views themselves as evil. I see them as originally a group who demanded order to the extreme. They may do evil, though.
I feel like it was really better nailed than in some of the ISB meetings with Partagaz, where he explains they are the immune system of the Empire. They find and predict, errors and fuck-ups that would have greater consequences, and they shut them down before they can. We protect the system protects everybody. Like it to me, that's just like, yeah, you can not be a villain and have that perspective. It's not too difficult. That's why I want to see more Partagaz. He was very interesting to me in season 1.
Yes. Axe Seth says, now I wish that Tony Gilroy went full on come and see way of things, not gonna lie. Can you imagine if they did that in Star Wars? That'd be interesting. Anthony B says, hi Drinker, thank you for responding to my super on Open Bar 138 about Threads. I'm concerned about the info you shared about Threads being remade. I hope such a powerful story is not filled with the message. Well, we'll wait and see on that one. Never underestimate the ability of modern writers to fuck things up. But yeah. Master Marwin says, as much as I liked Andor Season 1, I found the editing to be pretty bad. I was often disengaged with what everyone was talking about. Is Season 2 better? Editing is not really something that, I don't know, stuck out with me too much with Season 1.
No, not with me either.
Are we talking performance-wise? Is that what he's really getting at, or what?
Don't know, but in any case, like, so far, if you didn't like Season 1, Season 2 is not going to change your mind so far. But I'll update that as we go.
Okay. Paul Connolly. Drinker, would you be able to get Snarky J, Lady Gravemaster, and Baggage Claim together for an open bar? Please don't take this as criticism. I'd love to see them on a panel together, all being articulate female commentators. I mean, I could. I guess I'd need some kind of like reason for having just an all female panel. Like,
should have done it with the Barbie movie. Have all the girls on.
I know. I missed a trick there. Yeah. What else is likely to come up that would be good to get all their perspectives on? I don't know. Yeah. Next time there's a super, female-oriented movie, I'll see if I can get them all.
Sure.
Empredementos says, in World War II, the Germans court-martialed and shot a German soldier for raping a French girl. In the East, they let them run amok. It depends on the place, context, and goals. Yes, I do know that they were definitely more tolerant in Western Europe, or at least better controlled. Drake Foreman, did you see Rachel Zegler's new movie called Simple Jack 2, A New Beginning, starring Rachel Zegler, Cynthia Erivo, Pedro Pascal, and Jack Black? I mean, I can't wait to see something like that. I actually wanted that to get made now. Mm-hmm. John Hendry, how do you guys feel about Invincible Season 3, particularly the Conquest fight? Don't know yet. I have not seen it yet, but I will. Ghost Army, you all want to know what Star Wars is? Star Wars is content for a failing streaming service. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, I mean, for the most part, that's what it's become. But at least with something like Andor, there's an actual artistic intent behind it. They're wanting to make something good and they have a story they want to tell. We might not necessarily agree with what they're telling, but it's more than just slop.
It's like you have to roll a 6 on the dice, and every time they're handing it to us, there is no 6 on the dice with something like a Filoni or whatever. This one, maybe there's only one side, but we're rolling it, okay? And we're going to see what happens.
Ed's I like how there's no 6s on the Filoni dice. Sick. With J.J. Abrams, it's just all ones.
Yeah.
Ed Song, I like the Empire in Andor Season 1, but I hope to see more of the Empire in a military focus like the TIE Fighter short on YouTube. It did an efficient job in showing the Empire as a well-oiled machine. I mean, I think...
always prefer that portrayal of them to the bumbling clowns. I hate that has become like the normal.
I really appreciated with Season 1 as well, the scaling of power and the deployment of forces. So... with the sequel trilogy especially, like, we gotten used to the point where we had fleets of...
Hello? Fleets of what? Fleets of something. Well, I don't know if it's just me that can be heard right now, or if my internet's broken, but I'll just because my perspective on it is that the Empire isn't even interesting to defeat if they're all bumbling clowns. Meanwhile, showing them competent, scary, etc., it's like I actually really want the good guys to be able to take them down, and it gets you very, very invested. So if we get that kind of angle, it's I think it makes the story function way better. But if we end up with an angle that's just like, lol, they shoot themselves, they can't even aim, or they crash into themselves, that sort of thing, then it just damages the whole point of feeling as though the Empire were this oppressive force in the galaxy that needs to be taken down. So, I said this before, but like the opening scene of stealing that TIE fighter, I wasn't exactly reassured with the operations for the troopers there. But I've liked a lot of the portrayal of the Empire and troopers with Andor Season 1. So we shall see. I would have thought they would be invested in making them competent because it's going to, provide an enemy that needs defeating, even from a story standpoint, is useful in that way. Because the way they do it in Disney Star Wars typically is not changing the fact that they're clowns, but instead moving it to a place where there's so many of them that even if they are clowns, you got to take them all out. It reminds me of like the army of, what was it? Like the army of Mandalorians versus the army of jetpack stormtroopers. It's just like an army, both sides, and they did that at the end of the season for every Mandalorian season. Ahsoka, they had the zombie troopers, and then Rise of Skywalker, you had I think they were called this. The red troopers? I can't remember if they were called like Sith troopers or something, because they've run out of fucking names at this point. But just make more and more and more. That's the best way they know how to keep the story going. When if you just make them competent, you don't need as many, and it gets a little bit more scary. I would say, like the storyline of discovering the ship that had the rebel member in it, and from him they got the plan that was taking place with Krieger, I think it was, in Andor season 1. And
Hi.
so, oh, hello, how you doing?
Sorry about that. Yeah, my internet kind of glitched out for a second there.
I was just talking about the Empire being clowny.
Ah, right. Yeah, so what was I saying there? Yeah, I was just going to make a point. The thing I appreciated about season 1 of Andor is that it actually made like the appearance of any kind of force significant. The fact that we started off with just humble security guys, and then it moves up to like the appearance of stormtroopers, that suddenly becomes a major deal. Like, oh damn, the Empire is sending in the stormtroopers on this one. And then when you see just one TIE fighter fly overhead, it's like, oh, okay, you understand that there's a big projection of force going on there. That's like significant now, and it feels weighty. It feels like, oh, this is another escalation of the commitment they're making to this. Whereas we went from the sequel trilogy where you had fleets of like 10,000 Star Destroyers, and it was just complete like insane levels of power that you could never have. This made even small things seem important, which I liked, and hopefully we get more of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry to keep you waiting there. So, the blacksmith says Pedro is a 5 in looks, but a 9 in brains. All right, well, I'll take your word for that. OMG Puppies, Robert Rodriguez on Rogan today. Sin City was the gold standard for adaptation of a comic book. It was pretty good. The second one was a bit shit, though.
When was Sin? Was Sin City 2005?
I think so, yeah.
It was a long time ago.
It was. Chocolate Rage says Abby the Cutie and Ellie the Ogre. I mean, yeah, kind of. Exist outside the box. Do you think they should have stretched the first game into 3 seasons? P.S. Ellie looks like a potato monster. Drinks up. No, I wouldn't have stretched it into 3 seasons because there wasn't enough content to justify that. It would have just been a lot more wandering around and having like random adventures of the week.
I mean, you can extend you can tell the story between the seasons. You didn't. Between the games, you didn't have to skip it just because the games did. If you really want extra seasons, you can make new stories or something like that. But ultimately, generally speaking, I just feel like they shouldn't have gone with adapting the second game. I thought, it's enough information out there to know why you shouldn't. But oh well.
Yeah, they never could have given it up though. They had to do it. They had to.
Yeah.
Louis G, the problem with the grape scene is that it put too much of the real world in Star Wars. Remember, Jedi has been graping people's minds since the 1970s. That's a little bit different, but yeah. Prettian Chronicles said Bella Ramsey a few years ago was a proper evangelical Christian, but all of that is gone, and now she is a they-them wokist. I mean, look, I don't know much about her personal life. I know she's like non-binary or whatever, but I've never seen her say anything particularly like controversial. I don't think she's one of those actors who lashes out at fans and stuff and blames them for everything. So I could be wrong on that one, but I just haven't seen it. And I feel like if she had said something like that, the internet would have pounced all over it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything super controversial from her statement-wise, but
so yeah, I mean, I think it's we've talked a little bit about this, and I think it's fair enough to point out that she's probably miscast as Ellie, but we don't need to shit all over her as a person. I don't think too much. It's a bit unfair when she doesn't really deserve it. So I guess it's something to just keep in mind. Like, don't just go looking for reasons to hate her. Matthew Bugard says, okay, yeah, this is a follow-up from a previous super chat that he'd made quite a ways back, but saying it rejected modernism and atomic design, but the people are from the 1970s. The way people look and sound are inconsistent with the OT, the period we're in. Another side note, Mon Mothma is hot as fuck. I want that Space Heine.
I've seen a lot of people saying that. Genevieve O'Reilly is a pretty girl.
Yeah. I mean, she's a mature actress, but she's good looking. Starbucks Meg. A clear positive, though, is in season 2 is Tommy made practical, pragmatic decisions at Jackson. I hope the show gives him a prolonged key role in the series. I mean, I didn't like his handling of the bloater. Like, that just felt like we needed a boss fight.
What a miss! Like, how do you? It's like someone needs to teach them how you. It's like you don't actually want it to be like a video game where he just slowly watches the health bar go down by flaming it. It's like, no, it's TV show. You got to make it dynamic. You got to have him run out of fuel, or a zombie hits him from the back, and he's got to do. You need dynamism, man. You can't just watch a guy play a video game.
Well, you know what's really retarded about that whole encounter, right? He flames it until he runs out of gas, and then just kind of like drops to the ground, like, oh, well, I guess I'm dead then. And then when it collapses beside him, then he stands up and gets his gun out. Like, motherfucker, where was the gun when you were like out of flaming ammo? You could have at least started putting rounds into it. It might not have killed it, but like, give you a chance at least. It's got to be worth a shot.
The second half of the defense of Jackson was, I think, really shit. The first half had some hope. I was like, oh, this is kind of working. There's a way to do this, and then they all collectively agree, like, there's a bloater. It's over. It's like, what?
Well,
shoot it. Like.
Because when I saw some, so many people were up on rooftops covering the street, I thought, oh, it'll have been designed in such a way that if someone gets in through the walls, like they're funneled down a street and there's nowhere for them to go, it'll just be a kill box. Right. Which is like, okay, fair enough. That's a tactic. But then it's not. It's just like they've got free reign to like run wherever they want throughout the town.
That's it.
Yeah, and like. The people up on the rooftop shooting, they haven't even barred the stairwells that lead up to the roof. So then they start getting like ambushed by zombies from behind.
And
like,
then,
what the fuck are you doing?
They know where it's bursting from. It's like, why wouldn't you, if you're going to give up on the wall, at least set some fire, like a line of fire where they're bottlenecking? Because now you let them spread all around all over the town. You've only got 4 flamethrowers in the exact same spot, and then 2 of them run away as well. And I was thinking to myself, what's the point of running away? Where are you going to run to? Like,
yeah, like the town's overrun. Like, yeah, those 4 flamethrower guys should have been right in at the wall where it breaks through, and like all 4 of them firing at the same time. It's like, okay, nothing's getting through that.
No, and that's the thing. It bottlenecks, so it's like every zombie is going to get hit by that. But now, the way do you remember that part where he's like looking at his wife and the zombie's just running past him?
Yeah.
Gosh, I was like, what the fuck happened to the brain cells on making this? Because like. It felt like someone with at least 3-4 brain cells made the first half, and then
they used up all their thinking meat on that first encounter. Philippe Farias says Abby casting is like Tom Cruise playing Reacher, kind of, yeah. Ed Song, all I know after looking at Bella is that she competes with Ryan for airspace as the real estate on her forehead is measured in acres. Brutal. Starscream, hey Chris, most people thought Luthen was the best character at the end of Andor season 1. Who do you think was the best character after season 2? So obviously you can't answer that. I mean, I think right now we both pick Mon Mothma.
Well, it's between her and Luthen, but because I'm very biased toward Luthen. I find his story super interesting, and Stellan Skarsgård's probably the best actor on the show. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, it's going to be him or her. But I think Chris implied the Luthen story is going to... He did say that there's going to be an episode that's entirely about him. So my guess would be Luthen is his favorite.
Yeah. Bass player says, Mauler, you made Drinker play the game. Fair is fair.
No, I didn't. Everyone thinks I made you play either Last of Us 2 or Gollum. These things didn't happen.
No. I played that off my own accord, and then I forced Az to play the game.
Yeah, Drink is the evil one in this section, okay? I will get him back someday.
Well, it says here, knife-wielding women, just quotes, Mauler will remember this. Daval says, make Drinker play Veilguard, Lord of Ring Gollum, and Star Wars Outlaws as revenge, Mauler.
I would make him do Gollum, but it's not fair. Making me watch a TV show is not the same. Gollum is like 30 fucking hours if you don't know exactly how to beat it. So that's cool.
Idiotison says Joel the White will be a projection created by Jothreel.
Just for real. Just for real.
Saker Silver, Jay's Arwen versus Lindsay Ellis's from Suburban Nights. What the fuck is even that?
Oh yeah, that's Channel Awesome. That's good old Lindsay Ellis nostalgia chick doing, I guess, that back then. Good stuff, you know. Excellent movies.
Yeah, top quality.
Mhm.
Reno the Turk says, Snarky, do a live reaction vid for Lord of the Rings. It will pay your bills. Trust us. Well,
Yeah,
there you
people
go.
would like seeing that for real, especially if she's like, I don't know. I was about to say, especially if she's genuine about it. What I mean by that is you don't like look up, because a lot of people will just find out what moments they're supposed to have what reactions to, and it gets really like lame. If she
Yeah.
just talks about what she thought and stuff, people would be very interested to see it. I think.
Yeah.
It is Lord of the Rings.
It would be kind of funny if she's like avoided it for all like her whole life, basically, and then watches it and she's like, holy shit, this is the best thing ever. You know?
It does happen. It's been known to happen.
Ed Song, Drinker, you didn't like the Super Predator and the Hunt for Autism? I did. I thought that was Oscar winning. Superb. Shane Black's finest work. Really was.
Remember they have Sterling K. Brown just shoot his own head off in the middle of an action scene.
Yeah, I'll never get over that.
God, stupid movie.
I need to use that in a video at some point, just for a character making an idiotic decision.
Yeah.
What's this? William Draper. Would using the Sentry to reset the MCU work? Who's the Sentry again?
He's the bad guy in Thunderbolts. He's the one that's going to be opening the Void, I guess, or whatever. We don't need like resetting the MCU is not going to do shit. Like I feel really bad for anybody who thinks it will. It's like resetting the DCU. That's going to be great. It's like, what if Superman's bad?
Yeah, it could well happen.
Yeah.
Keaton Kitsune, to revive a dead argument because I podcasted an old episode, you in the UK have no breakfast meal that rivals American biscuits and gravy. It's fucking horrible slop. I hate biscuits and gravy. It's like taking a scone and pouring fucking like really chunky gravy over it.
You can go at Britain for bad food, but like, why would you target breakfast? That's one of our
the one thing we do well, yeah. And yeah, I legit think a full English breakfast is superior to like American breakfast. Because
full English breakfast, you're like, oh, so what's the components? You can see it, and there's different variations of it. But be like biscuits and gravy pizza. It's like, yeah, no, it doesn't.
Snacks says Predator Downs lands. Yeah, it's kind of looking like that. Albert Nada Retro. Let's have Hurt Locker director Catherine Bigelow work on a Predator movie with Gina Carano as the Predator hunting other women action stars. Wait, so Gina Carano plays the Predator?
Or is she just a person who is predating on other famous people and killing them? What's happening?
I mean, yeah, either way works. I mean, you'd have to, I don't know, you'd have to like size her up somehow because Gina Carano is not tall. I've stood next to her.
You need to have predators tall usually.
Yeah. Did they ever talk about doing something like that? Or it was probably an Expendables movie where they were going to get like a lot of these, you know, middle-aged female action stars and do something like that.
Tooled around with, but I guess it never.
It could have been cool, I think, because there is a lot of these action heroes who, you know, Mila Jovovich has put in her shift, you know, and maybe she deserves a little bit of recognition that way. Like,
I guess because they did the Oceans film, but with girls, right?
Yeah, but that's just, you know, pretty boring. What was the next one? Oh yeah, Brother Snape. It's over, Predator. We've deployed a 90-pound girl to destroy you. Yeah, pretty much. Filthy Casual. You read my gay joke chat last week. Seriously, channel hit 1,000 subs. I'm coming for your asses. I also intend to take your audience. Read it gay, please. I don't know, Muller. Could you do it in a gay voice? I don't know.
What you just said was pretty gay. So
that's fair. Yeah, I do have just a gay voice generally. That's my default setting. Jeremy Soden, hairdresser. Yeah, and oh no, ghetto predator from the Uber Geek. Yeah, Bray Fernandez. This looks like a DEI predator. Is that how can you DEI a predator? Oh well. Also invite Jay to more of these, please. She's a great addition to the fandom. Yes, indeed. Simon Ho, that predator looks like Zoidberg from Futurama.
Zoidberg.
What about Zoidberg? Paul Stramby, yo Muller, I'm glad to be backing your upcoming project, and I'm looking forward to more Stargrift.
Yeah, I mean, well, it hasn't been discussed, but I'm on board. Obviously, doing an episode for Andor once it's over, if the guys want to.
Yeah. Danny Boy, does that mean that Dutch's team were all autists? Is that why he was hunting them? That was a different predator, I think.
That's funny though. Like, I need your autism, Arnold.
Sector. Star Wars was universal as much for what they left out as for what they put in. Rape breaks the immersion the same way as a bald guy racing a Dodge Charger on the Death Star ranting about family would. I want to see that film.
I was going to say, you don't threaten us with a good time.
Ace Whitey. Predator looks like he's walked off set of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Okay. Darty says, "You're one ugly motherfucker" would be a compliment here. He is ugly, that's for sure. Third Right says, "If you guys get an email from me about canned meat, don't open it. It's spam." Boom. Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Ed Song. FX is doing an Alien Earth series. It is supposed to come out this year. Yeah. How are you feeling about that?
Not plussed. It's going to be prior to Alien, and it's going to take place on Earth. That's already bad news, like, to me, because they're going to fuck around. They are going to fuck around just like Romulus did.
Yep. They just can't leave the timeline alone. I don't know what this persistent drive is to like have something before everything else. You know, like, before Alien there was this thing, and then before this there was
to the thing that you actually care about. That, I mean, what better film to summarize that than Romulus? It's always like every fucking iconic moment in that film is just iconic moments from other films. It's God, yes. I do kind of hate that movie a lot.
Yes, and you
what
should.
A cynical piece of shit.
Ian So Forth. I can't remember if I read this out, but it's a great one. It would be great if they had Mandalorian and Grogu driving around in a hatchback solving ghost mysteries.
I think we were all on board on that. Yeah, let's do it.
OMG puppies. Jon Favreau's greatest work was Dinner for Five, the episode with Daryl Hannah, Marilyn Manson, and Andy Dick, for example. Damn. Whiskey Mindset says they are using the Who song from the opening of Jedi Fallen Order in the Predator trailer. Well, I do like a bit of the Who. Yeah, you got to appreciate that Mongolian metal. Hazel says Mon Mothma at the disco made me feel weird. Yeah, someone pointed it out today, I think, on Twitter. It was like the picture of the original Mon Mothma from the OT. It's like, if you told me that 40 years from now this chick's gonna be at a rave, I would not have believed you. But there you go. What's the next one? Robo96. George Lucas and Christopher Walken voice. What I need is more Jar Jar. That's it. We need more of Jar Jar in everything.
I certainly need that.
Jay Fraser. Hail, gents. Gun to your head, what's more interesting, Alien Earth or Predator Badlands? And have you seen the trailer for Predator Killer of Killers?
Is that
That's
the animated
one? Yeah.
I think I've seen that. I don't know why. I think I was sleepy when I watched it. So I'm trying to remember. But Alien Earth or Badlands?
Probably Badlands, I think.
Man,
because I don't think it's going to fuck with the continuity of other things too much. I mean, I say that now. They could mess up anything, really.
Well, ask me again when we get a trailer for Alien Earth that's like a trailer, like an actual trailer, not a teaser thing.
Yeah. Stitch says, hashtag Chris Gore Chris Gore haters unite. Chris was getting a lot of hate there.
He put his soul on the line to defend Jar Jar.
Yeah. Someone just said Chris has gone insane. On the other hand, Idioticin says Chris is the only sane one left. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Reno the Turk, my brother in Christ. Chris surprised everyone with the Jar Jar defense. Mauler is right. I've never heard anybody do this. Clip it for the Molly chuckles.
It's unprecedented, and that's why it's treasured. He needs to come back on and talk more about Jar Jar.
Indeed. Neat Switch says German Jar Jar is much funnier. That I want to see, a German dub. Snex says Lord of Ring Gollum? No, Star Wars Grogu. Indeed. Jay Fraser, what's your favorite Alfred Hitchcock film that you've seen? Ooh. That's a good question there, actually. It'd be easy to pick out things like Vertigo, wouldn't it? I mean, that's pretty good.
I've always had a serious soft spot for Psycho. I respect the hell out of what it is and when it came out, and despite it's such a like time capsule for horror, and obviously knowing somewhat of the story behind it. Especially, did you see the film? I think it was called Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins.
No, I don't think so.
Well, that film is about the creation of Psycho for the most part.
Yeah,
There's other stuff as well.
It's funny. It was super controversial when it was made, because they still had really strict laws about what you could show in terms of gore and stuff. And so the shower scene, obviously, where she's getting stabbed, they had to shoot that like super carefully. One, to like hide the fact that she was naked, and two, to never show the knife actually like penetrating flesh. So it had to be like super careful like that. And then they can just show the blood sort of draining away. But it achieves a lot by showing very little, which I think is quite admirable, actually.
True.
Ed Song says, Snarky, he plays the fool, but he's actually a Sith Lord controlling Palpatine. He will not break his facade unless he has no choice. I guess that's Jar Jar. Yeah. Locationary says, I can't wait for Vader to force choke someone and then to say, choke me harder, daddy, in next week's Andor episode. Indeed. Anna Nielsen was so excited for TFA, made a pretty dang accurate Rey costume from scratch to wear opening night. This was going to be my generation's Star Wars. That is actually really sad. A lot of people probably had the same experience. Patrick Mulligan, I want to see proper adaptations of the rest of the Bond novels. They gave up after Thunderball. I'm not sure film fans would like a more accurate Bond. Yeah, I mean, apparently Timothy Dalton's version is the most accurate to the books. Make of that what you will.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Maverick Christian, Snarky J is awesome. Glad she made it. We all are. Sean Wilson, if any of you watch Rogue Heroes, it's on MGM Prime. Dramatized history of the SAS founding, laughs, action, and some great poignant scenes. Season 2 is better than Season 1, in my opinion. Take a break from the self-flagellation. I've heard good things about Rogue Heroes, actually. Dragon on Coke says, genuinely, how did people forget that Star Wars has always been first and foremost about the struggles and fight against a tyrannical government? Lightsabers and the Force are just extensions of this.
Sure.
Okay. Hassel says, Andor's pep talk to the lady in the first 5 minutes was a great payoff to his arc in Season 1. 1 to 3 are all set up, not really satisfying, but important in the build. It's all going to be dependent on what they come.
I did like and notice that, like what he says to that Empire girl who's like a double agent or whatever, like him doing that somewhat speech to her is already evidence of like how far he's come since what we last saw him, in terms of like he's gone from wanting to join the rebellion to being like a significant element of it. And that's why I thought that all the shit with the rebel people, that we were going to get that in Microcosm, that he was going to help them out, lead them, get them to stop squabbling. But man, that just did not go the way I thought it was gonna,
Yeah. Blainero Tycoon. Hey, Drinker, what's it like being interviewed by Chris Williamson? You guys have great chemistry whenever he's interviewed you. Yeah, I mean, he's just a really nice guy, really easy to talk to. We bantered for a while before we started recording, and yeah, it's just really down to earth. So it's one of the easiest interviews I've done, I think. A Classical Mess says, did you get a chance to see Sinners? It's a really good movie. I did. I saw it. I talked about it on Twitter. I liked it. Yeah. You know, in terms of the visual design, the performances all really good. Some great sequences there. You know, a kind of supernatural animated dream sequence where they're playing music and it kind of flips between different eras and stuff, all in the same continuous shot. They must have worked their arses off doing that. Keaton Kitsune says, with two different audiences disliking how Joel died, is this not enough confirmation that it was badly done? Gamers and show viewers both dislike it. Do you think they'll actually have Ellie and Abby about the whole thing? I guess
I'm worried that they're just, it's going to be the worst thing you could imagine in terms of like decision making broadly. They're so, unfortunately, they are so faithful to a lot of the bad shit that, yeah.
Jay Fraser, does the plot of Muller's short film feature him kidnapping a homosexual and forcing him, Clockwork Orange style, to watch his long critique of Interstellar? I think we know who you're talking about there.
Well,
you should do that.
I just don't know how legal it is to do that, you know?
Yeah, well, there is that. And Lathan Andrews says, everyone, please go see The Ugly Stepsister. Alrighty. And that is the last of the super chats right there. It was a big one tonight. Actually, there were a lot of people that super chatted us on the night. Shows how strongly they felt about Andor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm sure next week will be nowhere near as controversial. He says, hopefully. But, well, thank you guys for sending us so many chats. We appreciate it. And we'll be back again for the next open bar on Thursday. But for now, that is all we've got for today. So go away now. Bye.